Hello, everyone. Happy 2025 to all of our beautiful listeners. We are so grateful for all of you for being here on our very first episode of the year. And I think today is going to be a shocker. It's going to rattle the paradigm of what we have painted our own characteristic to be. And it is totally shifted how we want to move, how we want to express for this year. And so we felt it was really important to start this year with what has been really, really heavy on our hearts. And we want to be bold and we want to be way showers and we want to have an honest conversation with you all. So I will preface this is gonna be a shorter episode, and for how deep it really is, we might kind of leave you on a cliffhanger, but that's okay. That's what this whole year is really going to be about. But I'm just going to kick it off and let's just hop right into it. I've got my beautiful soul sister here, Miss Erica Olson.
Hello, family.
All right, so let's get just right into it. Today's episode is something that a lot of people don't want to talk about spirituality and religion. Or a lot of people don't actually want to talk about religion, but they really want to talk about spirituality. So, why is that? A lot of I'm gonna blanket term new age spirituality. Why is that so trending? Why are they so drawn to it? Where Erica and I, as you all know, this whole past year, we've been collaborating with spiritual industry professionals. We've spoken at the Conscious Life Expo. Like, we've been deep, deep, deep down in this work, reading, listening to podcasts, consuming knowledge, etc. So it's going to be a real big shocker for all of you to say, we're questioning it all. And we are really leaning into God and Jesus right now.
Mhm.
And how it really started for us was someone that we really respected and thought was very knowledgeable and we really looked up to, didn't idolize, didn't worship, nothing like that, but someone we really trusted. Um, just turned out that they weren't who they said they were. And they were
Literally.
a wolf in sheep's clothing. And it's been I'm really excited for us to speak on this as the year continues, because I feel like Erica and I both have such valuable perspectives to help people with, because we feel a lot of people are actually feeling this way too. But it's literally questioning everything you know. It's questioning everything that you've been. It's questioning everything that you are. And I think we bring really valuable perspectives to the bridge right now. And I'll be honest, I wasn't even ready to have this conversation because I've wanted to pick the right Bible. I don't want to choose the wrong one. I know it's been manipulated. I want the real knowledge of it. And where Erica has really grown up with Christianity in the household, she's grown up knowing more about God and Jesus. She's been around that a lot more. Her mother is, very, very passionate and an obedient follower of Christ. And so I think we have really two great perspectives, because Erica's really been learning a lot and she's really has this inner knowing, where for me, it feels right. It feels right to give myself over to God and to give myself over to Jesus and to use that as a prayer method. And it feels right. But I just have so many questions, and so much of my being has been shattered, and it's been like exhausting, to be honest. So that's just where I'm
The beautiful, the
yeah.
beautiful part about that is actually when you do accept Jesus into your heart, and I did as a young child and I did again as an adult, but you don't need to know everything. The Holy Spirit works through you and is able to bridge that gap for you. And you don't need to go out and search, although it's great, yes, get the Gospels, learn, still have this, this desire to build your relationship because it's like any relationship. You got to put effort in if you want that relationship to prosper. Um, but I think this is like a beautiful dynamic because you guys have seen us literally searching for the truth, being real and vulnerable and honest with what we believe in that moment and everything that we have gone through in the past year. Like, we're on our own journey. And when we find something new and valuable and is on our heart to say, no, we've had a change of heart, I feel like
Yeah.
it's it's only the right thing to do to be honest about that. and to come fully out with what we are seeing, what we are experiencing, what we feel in the deepest part of our hearts, and also what we've seen in our lives, in our business, in our families, the shifts that have happened overnight, the things I've experienced in my nuclear family my whole life that I've never even really talked about. And I think that as we continue to share, you'll start to see that our hearts are in the right place. Everyone has their own free will. You all get to decide what you choose to believe in, what you choose to listen to, what you choose to identify with, what you choose to believe is the truth for yourself. And I think that's what we're doing too. And, to kind of go into what happened came out of the blue for us. We went on our holiday break. We're like, la-di-da, let's just relax girl season. And then boom, confronted with this knowledge of this person that was basically a wolf in sheep's clothing. And this has to do with fraud. This has to do with identity theft. This has to do with corrupting a system so that they can monetize off of people in the spiritual community. And once we saw that, we were like, whoa, what have we been associating with? What have we been interested in? What have, and we know that one person doesn't make or break it in a whole community of people, obviously, and that's not what we're saying. We're saying that was the mustard seed that got planted for us to start to question everything. And you can just come with an open mind and be like, you know what, same thing as exiting the matrix and like that whole shift in your consciousness that needs to happen to see the world for what it really is and make that leap consciously. The same thing can be applied to the spiritual concepts and beliefs that you have identified with and believed for maybe a really long time, or you put a lot of emphasis in, and just understand like, okay, what's wrong with taking in a thought and bouncing it around to see if it really resonates with me before I completely dismiss it. And I think that happens to the gospel and to Jesus Christ and to the Holy Trinity a lot. And even that to me was like, okay, well, let's just take a look at that. Why is it so polarizing? Why is it the most mocked religion, right? Why is it something that as soon as people start to talk about it, I experienced this my whole life because my mom loves to talk about Jesus and she'll bring it up in almost every conversation
I
if
know.
you let her, right? And that can
If
be
you
really
don't let her, even if you don't
even
let her, God and
if
Jesus.
you don't let her.
Yeah,
Because, she's seen the love and she's seen the prosperity and she's seen what it's brought into her life. And she was a broke and lost child. And she found love within Jesus and within God and within her experience. And she just wants to share that, right? And so I know it's coming from a good place. But what I kind of want this to be about is understanding that you don't need to be ready to accept Jesus into your heart. Like literally, it's as simple as Jesus, I want to know you. I want to grow a stronger relationship with you. I accept you into my heart. Forgive me for anything I have done to bring harm to others. Forgive me for anything I've done to bring harm to myself. I want to know you. Show me yourself to me. Show me yourself to me. And that is the seed. That's all you need to do. And if you get curious enough, it will happen. It will happen.
I think like for me, even in this podcast right here, like I'm taking it from like a listener's perspective, like they're gonna be like, hold on, wait, you guys were like literally talking all about spirituality, astrology, numerology, ancient human history, pyramids, Egyptian deities, goddesses, all the things. And the first episode, you're telling me to let Jesus into my heart. Like where, like, hold on, what? So you're just telling me that you just talked to you saw one person, and now you accept Jesus in your heart? Like, hold on. So like,
Okay, but
I
even
really
on
want
that
to bridge
thought,
that.
yeah, and even on that thought, okay, so what's the big deal? You've gone out and done all these ceremonies, you've done all these prayers, you've prayed to deities, you went to Egypt. What's the big deal about saying, Jesus, I accept you into my heart? What's
Totally.
the big deal about that?
Well, but
If
that
you were
exactly,
so into everything else and seeking it and, medicine and plants and this and sisterhood and moon cycles and you're seeking all of this other stuff, what's one more thing? What's one more thing to say, Jesus, I accept you into my heart?
totally. And that, but that is a conversation worth having, right? It's because
So why?
our,
Why is
I think that religion or Christianity has had a bad rap for many years is like, okay, well, why, right? Because we do know that pieces of the Bible are very much so true. And it's interesting like the Bible is very spiritual. The whole thing is extremely spiritual. We're literally talking about a man who died on a cross and was resurrected again. You're telling me that's not
There is
spiritual?
miracles,
Like,
there
right.
is prophecy, there
So,
is
so I
magic,
think there's exactly, right?
there's
But
giants.
I think a lot of people were turned off because we do know that it was seen as so powerful and true that it was then manipulated. The truth was manipulated for mass population control. And then it started to turn into a lot of people abusing the power and trying to, take money, or we hear about pastors and kids, and there's just so much darkness but that's not really of God, right? So I
Well,
think,
against that, in the New Testament, it talks about him in the churches flipping over the tables because they made a shopping center out of the church. And that through taxation, this is going back to the Romans, they were taxing people. And Jesus was the first conspiracy theorist, the rebel, the first person going against the monarchy, the first, not the first, but I'm just saying, in our time, I feel like a lot of people in the spiritual community are these conspiracy theorists that we're like, we're the rebels, we're going against the matrix, we are the ones that are uprising against these dark forces that we know are on our planet. But then when we actually learn, okay, well, what would they do if they actually knew the truth? They would invert it. They would tell you it's a lie. They would make it seem like it's not this good thing. And they would take part of the truth and they'd mix it with some lie and they'd tell you 90% true, but even a 10% lie is still a lie. Right. And so this podcast to us, this episode, I guess, is about the pursuit of the truth and our journey continuing to pursue that truth. And then the unfoldings that we've seen in the last, it's only been a couple weeks that we've really got
yeah,
this
that's why
got shifted in our lives.
but that's why I was saying I didn't even feel ready to record this because I want to learn more, but I think that's why we had to, was because this
I
is
think it's
the
so pure and
bridge.
out.
Yeah.
You feel something and it's something
Yeah.
that you feel good about talking about because it's like when you fall in love with, I don't know, that's a hard explanation, but when and some things don't need all of the tick boxes and the scientific notations and the
Well, that's
quantifiable
ego.
quantum science sources.
Well, that's it, right? Like that gets questioning, right? You start questioning like, okay, so, what about all my, I want to put a blank, statement out there by saying I do believe that, a lot of people obviously do have pure intentions, do only want to work with the light and the love and whatnot. But
Yeah.
it's like, why that constant search for more knowledge, to learn, to learn, to learn, to raise frequencies, to align with, to create reality. But when it's like, but if you do just give yourself over to God and you are obedient and you believe, that is living by faith and you don't need to know, right? So,
And Jesus said, a faith of a mustard seed can move mountains. It's all through it's funny because if you just apply that same energy and effort that you're putting into this one thing, which I felt like I was doing, right? I was going out and I was buying all these books and knowledge and podcasts, and I'm like, yes, I'm learning more. And I felt like I was always coming from this Christian perspective, which is my lens, because that's how
yeah,
I grew up. I can't change my upbringing.
I always
But
felt
I
like a
felt
board.
like I was being open-minded. I'm doing the right thing by opening my mind to all these other religions and beliefs and things and trying to puzzle it all together so that I can come with a fuller picture of our ancient history and all of this stuff. And what it actually led me back to is the truth, is the word, is God, is Jesus Christ. And I'm even more firm. I'm doubling down, two toes down, and I'm standing on my business because when you see darkness, when you see true evil, then you understand, whoa, not only is that power real in this actual 3D reality, but the equal and opposite is also real. And
Mhm.
so let's start to use this conspiracy mind to actually go down the rabbit hole of who I know Jesus to be, because I grew up being, encountered and having these experiences happen around me, but I never actually read the full Bible as an adult. with adult lens on it and actually making this discernment for myself. And most people I talk to have never read the Gospels. And I would start with, you're going to start anywhere, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John to understand who Jesus was. Right. And that's even enough. It's like if you read all of these other books, what's four other books to add to your reading pile? And
Totally.
read those four books to
Well,
see if you resonate.
for me, I'm a little bit intimidated to read. I am going to. That is my reading material. But I will say it's intimidating because I know so much of it is encrypted and it's like you really you can't read it for surface value. It's just so deep. But you're so right, Erica. It's like everything we've been searching for has been right in front of our face the whole time. Like if we've been searching for spirituality and empowerment and healing and forgiveness and love and oneness, why did we go everywhere else but the Bible? Like it's just kind of crazy to
Even
think.
that is kind of a like a red flag to me. It's like, okay, so yeah, if I was this evil force and I knew that there was something of light on this earth that would lead God's children back to God, I would hide it, I would demonize it, I would misconstrue it. And I believe that has been the active happenings. And let's just kind of go back and maybe if I give like a little synopsis of my lens of like, kind of the lead up would because I don't think honestly a lot of people have truly heard the story of like what's happened in the Bible and then what happened after the Old Testament and why did Jesus come and just like a little snippet so that you guys can understand because I mean I think that's
I
really the
think
big
it
question.
quenches the thirst of a spiritual person, to be honest, what you're about to share, because I think the spiritual person loves the mysticism and loves the bigger than you theory. So I think what you're about to share actually quenches that thirst for a spiritual.
Yeah, and that's what I started to realize when I went back and started reading with adult eyes the beginning of this year. And I even downloaded the app so I could listen to it while I was just getting ready. And I'm like, whoa, this is a connection to our ancient history. And this is a connection. I've started connecting the dots. And so, book opens with Genesis, and there's an Old Testament and a New Testament. And I just want to preference this because the Old Testament is ancient texts that are still the Word of God, but everything in the New Testament completely wiped clean the Old Testament. So when they say sacrifice. And the Old Testament is like the Torah, which is Judaism, right? And so Jesus was born a Jew. He was born in a Jewish town, right? And there was no Christians at the time because Christ hadn't come yet. But in the Torah, they believed a Messiah was coming. A Messiah was coming that would wipe clean and purify the earth because there was so much evil, so much devastation on this planet that God was saying, I will send someone. I will send, I love you guys so much. I will send someone. But the Jewish people believe the Torah that the Messiah never came. So this is kind of where it bridges into Christianity, is Christians believe that Christ was the Messiah, but when he came, no one recognized him. A lot of people, you know, said he was blasphemy and going against the king, the Roman king, and how dare you say you're the King of Kings because not Caesar, he wasn't the king at the time, but
Uh,
Pilate.
the first was the one that
Yeah, like the Roman king is the king of this domain. You can't call yourself king. So that's why he ended up getting crucified, as the Jewish leaders in their church crucified Jesus because they said, how blasphemous that you say you're the Son of God, how blasphemous that you say you're the King of Kings. And Jesus went to the cross and had this horrific death. If you've ever looked in or watched The Passion of Christ, it's like the worst way to die. And why would any innocent person do that? Like it just doesn't make sense. And not only that, his 12 disciples that went and created Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John in the Gospels afterwards and wrote about their times with Jesus and the firsthand testimonies, they all died horrific deaths. And they still kept this story alive until they died. And I'm like, what person in their right mind would go out and dedicate their life to this? Only if they saw the miracles, only if they saw the true resurrection, only if they saw all of this happen, would I literally die upside down on a cross for it. Only if I really, really, truly believed. So it starts to go conspiracy mind. Okay, why would these people do that? Why would the church be so against them? Why would Rome hate them? Right? Why would Rome hate them, crucify Jesus, and then say, oh, you know what? We're Roman Catholics now, and we believe in Christianity, but our Christianity, and you can't get to God unless you go through the priest, and we're going to tax you. And I'm kind of making a joke about it because all of these questions were the burning questions I had growing up of like, wait, how does this piece together? What does this really mean? And so as the story goes, Genesis is the start of the world. God created the world and he created Adam and Eve, the first human race, and he created this whole domain and it was beautiful and it was righteous and they were naked, living in this best land and they had all the abundance and all the fruit and they had dominion over everything and they could co-create. And then what happened was this evil force, it was a fallen angel that fell from heaven and masqueraded as a light bearer, came in and spoke to Eve and said, well, did God really say you can't eat from the tree of knowledge, the tree of good and evil, the tree of contrast? Did he really say that? He doesn't want you to be like him? So then that was the doubt. That was, oh, what God would really want that for me? What God would want me not to know the knowledge and have this power and be like a God?
We
That
pause.
doesn't really sound like God.
Pause because right now we're bridging people between what we've been sharing versus what we're learning. And even that does correlate with what we have consumed most recently, which is like the whole Anunnaki situation, which they said that the
You can be
human
like
race
God.
was already here. They said that the human race was already here.
Yeah.
Ergo, what if God created Adam and Eve, but they said that the
Uh-huh.
Anunnaki came and mixed their DNA with human DNA,
Yeah.
and that was now what our humans are today. So even the
So
Bible and that theory line up.
yeah, and that talks about the Nephilim. So when I read that there was Nephilim and giants on Earth in the Bible, I'm like, oh, these are the fallen angels, ergo the Anunnaki. So spiritual community talking about Anunnaki and aliens. Religious or Christian community is talking about Nephilim and fallen angels. Really, they're the same thing. And they manipulated and tainted the pure humans. And so then we were in a fallen state, and there was the fall of man, and this was the corruption, and they taught us war, and they taught us how to make it weaponry, and how to basically just pillage and create this devastation across the planet. And it hurt God so much, and that's in the Bible to say, like, he felt bad. Like he felt bad for this creation that he created because it was supposed to be so righteous and it had gotten to such a fallen state that he's like, I don't know what else to do. Right. So I am going to create a flood and I'm going to try my best to wipe off the Nephilim and the giants, but there is going to be devastation. And so that's the story of Noah. And that's actually the story that lines up with the youngest Dryas era of where that was that great flood that happened. And the scientific community will say it was a meteorite that hit, and then the ice age happened, and then the oceans covered all the earth.
And the spirituality community will say that's the Atra Hasis.
Yes, right. And so there was this great purification. And even after that, this is still Old Testament. Even after that, some people survived and it started to repeat itself. The evil came out again. And guess what? They said, we're going to rebuild. And so this is the rebuilding of all the temples. So, you know how in all the ancient sites, there's temples built on temples and it gets worse, right? So they lost the knowledge of how to build these crazy structures, is because the flood wiped out a lot of that knowledge, but there's people that survived and they tried to rebuild, but they had lost some of that. And so then they created things like Babylon, and this is the era of Egypt of all of these deities and goddesses and gods, and they're all trying to be like God. They're trying to be their own God. They're trying to be like a god, but they're half gods or demigods. And so when we think of like Anunnaki meeting with humans, we have half breeds, which are like the demigods. And so they have their power is dwindling because as they when they were in their Anunnaki state, like let's say like they're higher dimensional beings, they were more powerful. But as they mix in with the humans, and this is documented in like even some of the ancient readings that we've done, they actually became less powerful. And so they had to use things like black magic. They had to start creating, these rituals and these, it got darker and darker and darker, right? And this is all documented. And this is when we get to King Solomon. And King Solomon was, I got to do more reading on him, but he was a great leader, but he actually gave in to the darkness and he made a mistake and he started to control the darkness and he wrote all of, the codes of, when you say this spell, this casts out this demon. And when you say this spell, and so he was doing it for good, but it corrupted him. And so that's the whole story of you may do something for good, But if it's not rooted in actual the righteousness in the word, it will always be corrupted and it will always spin out into something that in the end hurts you more than it helps you. And it's this whole story of darkness will not present itself as darkness. It will present itself as healing. It will present itself as something that's good. You're doing godly work. You're doing something that's righteous. And I think that's why we feel called to talk about this is because so many people like ourselves feel called to help other people, to seek this knowledge, to be like, well, I'm a good person and I want to help people. So what's out there that I can help people? Okay, let's use this tool and this tool and this tool and this tool. And then let's go share it with this community and share it with my community over here. And then, we pull back the layers and there's just some things, I'm gonna be honest, like I've seen dark and some things you cannot human magic spell away. There are some things that only God and Jesus Christ, and I've seen this in church where people literally say the name Jesus Christ and the demon leaves or the dark energy leaves or the whatever deity that they accepted into their field through whatever they were doing leaves because it is the power of that name. Like Jesus came here so that he could wipe everything clean and he could be the purification that the flood didn't happen, that when Eve started to eat the fruit of tree of knowledge, like this was all the undoings that Jesus tried to basically correct. It was the big correction. So that brings us to the New Testament of Jesus's life and coming here, which was even a miracle in itself because it's an immaculate conception, which is like the most mystical,
I know.
mysterious thing that you could ever believe.
It's to bear a child without actually having sex.
Yeah.
Like, I know.
Like,
So,
so
so you guys, I warned you this was going to be a short one and it's going to leave you on a cliffhanger. But this is where our hearts are at. I want to preface to say this isn't turning into, like a full-on Christian podcast. No, we still really want to help you on your business. We want to help you with wealth creation and all five pillars of your life. We just have felt extremely called to share what we've been learning, what's been on our hearts, what we're questioning in our own lives. And that's what really creates a great leader, is someone who's willing to question even themselves for the betterment of others. So there's
this
just
is
still
no
so
time.
much. This is still so much I want to talk to you guys about. I want to fit in like astrology, numerology, aliens, Kundalini, sacred geometry. Like there's so many layers. So we're going to dive into all of that. But thank you so much for being here with us. Thank you for staying curious. A line that I really love is, if this triggers you, you got to reflect, why does that trigger you? There's something there. We have another episode coming out next week. It's with Sarah, my good friend Sarah Connolly. She's had her own revelations. It's about an hour and a half of that's the one you've kind of waiting for after this one. It's a real we really peeled back the layers of the onion on that one. So buckle up your bootstraps. It's going
It's
to
a
be a
great bridge
wild year.
because she
It's
is a shaman.
Yes,
She helps people on like this is her body of work. So I think it's a great bridge for people too.
absolutely. So thank you, everyone. Happy New Year. Just know this, okay? We don't need to try so hard. Okay, Jesus has already died for our sins. We can take the shortcut and pray to him and let God in our heart, let Jesus into our heart, be good people, and miracles are going to move through our life. And we don't need to continue to consume and all that.
And
So
sin is
anyway,
just separation from God. And that was a big distinction for me because I think even that's a big trigger for a lot of people. But we love you. This is
love
all
you.
love.
Yes, we love you. We don't think nobody is bad, or that, we're not polarizing or separating anything. We're opening up conversation. And why can't we just all have a healthy conversation?
This is our own personal expression of our own journey too. So, take what resonates. But we love you. Happy New Year. And we are excited to help you grow your business in 2025.
Yes. Hey, once you let Jesus and God into your life, your business is going to explode. That's actually the truth.
Oh
Anyways,
my gosh, we got to do one on that.
love you all. Thank you. Have a blessed year. Love you, sister. Arrivederci.